everybody? Welcome back to another episode. I hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your summer. Welcome back to the channel, and it has been like a pretty crazy start to the NHL offseason with the draft. I did a mock draft. That was actually my last video, but we should be posting again from now on. We'll hopefully have a couple videos now every day for the next 4 or 5 days now. I'll try to be pre-recording a lot of videos today. But anyways, the draft was crazy. A lot of big surprises, I guess you could say. The biggest one probably being Moritz Seider going to the Detroit Red Wings at number 6. That was pretty crazy, but it was a fantastic draft nonetheless, and the surprises obviously made it that much more exciting. Then we went to free agency, and that was a fantastic day. Artemi Panarin going to the New York Rangers, Sergei Bobrovsky to the Panthers. There was a lot of fantastic players going to a lot of teams that I think will definitely push them to potentially be playoff teams. Most importantly, the Florida Panthers. They finally get their goaltender. They finally, I think, got a top-notch coach now. Panthers will most likely be a playoff team next year, in my opinion. We also saw an offer sheet by the Montreal Canadiens on Sebastian Aho. Now, the Carolina Hurricanes said that they would match that offer, and it most likely will be happening today or tomorrow. They had a week to match it. Now, again, they said they would match it, but they haven't officially matched it. That match they'll probably match it today or tomorrow, and probably by the time this video goes up as well. Today, we will be looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs and what's next for the Leafs roster. Obviously, big question mark being Mitch Marner. What's going to happen with him? We'll break that down. We'll break down kind of what their roster is looking like this year, their bottom 6, and obviously their stars as well. See how much growth they have. We'll definitely be breaking down this roster. If this is the first video you guys have seen by me, please do consider subscribing down below and comment on where you guys are from, what's your favorite NHL team, and let me know what you guys think will be next for the Toronto Maple Leafs and how they will fare in the Atlantic Division this year. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. All right, let's start with probably one of the biggest trades this offseason has seen. We obviously saw the PK Subban trade. This one involved another star defenseman. I don't know if you could say star. He's definitely an elite defenseman, that being Tyson Barrie. The Toronto Maple Leafs acquired Tyson Barrie, Alexander Kerfoot, and I think a 6th-round pick in exchange for Nazem Kadri, Calle Rosen, and a 3rd-round pick. Now, this was, I think, a fantastic trade for the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially on the surface of it. I mean, they got a top-notch defenseman that will definitely be able to help them out. I mean, before this trade happened, their defense was looking very poor with the subtractions of Zaitsev, Hainsey, Gardner. Definitely didn't look as good as it did the year before. And then they also picked up Alexander Kerfoot, who I think will be a much better 3rd-line center for this team. He's a younger guy, doesn't lose his temper and go crazy in the playoffs like Nazem Kadri does. And obviously, a lot of Leaf fans like Kadri. I never really understood why. He could have cost you guys a series this year. I think if the Leafs did have Kadri, and I've said it in the past episodes, they might have been able to take Boston in Game 7. Nazem Kadri was probably their only real sandpaper in the lineup, him and Connor Brown, and they're both gone. So we'll talk a bit more about that later. But again, they pick up Alexander Kerfoot. They sign him to a contract, and I think this guy, they'll see some solid growth out of him over the next couple seasons. He'll definitely be the perfect 3rd-line center for the Leafs. Now on to the main part of the deal for the Toronto Maple Leafs, that being Tyson Barrie. They pick him up. Will probably be playing on the top pairing with Morgan Rielly. As you guys can see, I obviously have written out the lineup for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and down here, the New York Islanders. We'll talk about them later. But here is the projected lineup for the Leafs with Marner, and then we'll talk about it without Mitch Marner. But again, pick up Tyson Barrie. Will probably be playing on the top pairing with Morgan Rielly. Maybe not, though, as both of them are kind of offensive-minded defensemen. Maybe you see a guy like CC or Muzzin playing on the top pair. We shall see. But the problem, in my opinion, with this trade, again, they got rid of some sandpaper in Kadri. Him and Connor Brown were the only real guys on the forward side of things. When you subtracted Kadri and Connor Brown out of the lineup, are they going to get bossed around by other teams? I know they were talking about that going into this past season, and you could start to see it in the playoffs. They did push Boston to Game 7, but again, without those two players, will they be able to, I know that's not really their game plan, but we'll just have to see what happens if that will hurt the lineup going forward. But again, they subtract Nazem Kadri, but in my opinion, they pick up a guy like Tyson Barrie, who is very similar to Morgan Riley. And that's a good thing. 59 points for Barrie this season. The guy can score, but he's a guy kind of like Jake Gardiner, where he gives up the puck a lot, and Leaf fans obviously don't like that with Jake Gardiner. So I think they got to give him some leeway where, okay, he's going to definitely help on the offensive side of things, but it's going to be like a Gardiner sort of where he does give up the puck. Probably not as much as Gardiner. I do think he's a much better defenseman than Jake Gardiner, much better, but he will be kind of that guy that will give up the puck the odd time. So I think Leaf fans are going to have to take it easy on him, but he is kind of like a Morgan Riley, where they were looking at a trade for TJ Brody, who I think could have fit the role better as more of a two-way defenseman. You could definitely contribute on the offensive side, but also defensively is a bit stronger than Tyson Barrie. But we'll see. They did pick up Cody Ceci for Nikita Zaitsev. Although I do like that trade, I don't like the signing they signed him for. They signed him for, I think it was 4.5 for 1 year. At least it is 1 year. They'll see what they get in Cody Ceci. And then they also picked up Ben Harper in that trade. Be a solid 6th, 7th defenseman for the team. So after that trade, I think they definitely improved their roster 100%. Big trade for Kyle Dubas. I think they were able to pick up cap space. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but they definitely helped their defense out a lot with that acquisition of Tyson Barrie. Let's talk about the big fish right now, and that is Mitch Marner and the RFA market. I would like to talk a bit more about RFAs at the end of the video, and obviously Montreal Canadiens, what they'll be doing. But right now, Mitch Marner is kind of the elephant in the room right now for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and whenever you talk about the Leafs, this guy, obviously coming off 94 points this season. He is an elite winger in the National Hockey League. I would put him in top 5 for right wingers 100%. Maybe even top 3 for right wingers. The guy is unbelievable. Some people say he was helped by John Tavares, and I can see why. And I think some of his points came from that. But again, he's only 22 or 23, so he's still a very young winger, and I think he'll just continue to grow. Well, I think he'll be at 100 points next season wherever he plays, whether he plays with John Tavares or Matthew Barzal with the Islanders. I don't know where he's going to play exactly, but I think he will hit 100 points, almost 100%. If he doesn't, please make sure to rub it in later on in the season, but I'm almost certain he will hit 100 points. I'm also almost certain that he'll be getting close to 11 million as well. I think, obviously, if a team offer sheets him, they'll be giving him around, I think, 10.5 to 11.5, anywhere in that range. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs, right now, they're at 3.5 million in cap space. Once they put Nathan Horton on, I forget the exact word for it, but once they can terminate his contract, pretty much where he's injured, he can never play for the rest of his life. They could put him on this injury reserve, and they'll get his contract back. So that is 5.5 million, I think. All said and done, once they send some players down to the AHL with contracts of about $700K, they'll be around 9 million to I think 9.5. Now, some people say it's enough to sign Mitch Marner. I'm not one of those people. I think Marner will be getting close to 11 million, and I think he deserves it. A lot of people, I'm one of the guys that thinks Mitch Marner is a better player than Austin Matthews. I think he's more of a complete player, and okay, Austin Matthews will get 50 goals for you, but Mitch Marner, I think, plays two zones better. He'll be better on the defensive side, and definitely, obviously, can contribute on the offensive side of the puck. So I think, in my opinion, I like Mitch Marner better than Austin Matthews. I think he deserves more than Austin Matthews, but I don't think he'll get it unless a team like the Islanders say, okay, we'll offer him 12 million, which I could see happening, but again, it is a bit much, even in my opinion. So I think he'll be around 11.5 will probably be the max of which he will get. Again, Artemi Panarin gets 11 million, but that is on the UFA side of things. So again, the UFA market, you'll probably get overpaid a bit. But, Mitch Marner, I think he deserves over 11 million for sure. So, again, Toronto Maple Leafs will have to do some magic. In my opinion, if they do, if there is an offer sheet made for Mitch Marner, they'll definitely have to be getting rid of a contract around 2 million to 3 million. I think that guy might be Zach Hyman, as much as people would definitely not want to get rid of that guy. If they do get an offer sheet for Marner, and it is around 11 million, they're going to have to do something to get a guy like, I think Zach Hyman will have to be off the books, or a guy around that same contract. So I think Hyman is the obvious choice and one of the only choices, and I don't think Leafs are going to want to do that. So the best thing for the Leafs is just to try to get him signed. Forget about the offer sheets. You can't let that happen. You got to get him signed right now. A team that would be interested in Mitch Marner, and that is the New York Islanders. So again, they're an $8.65 million in cap space, which right now is $5 million more than the Leafs. It's much easier, I think, for them to be able to sign Mitch Marner to an offer sheet. Now, I don't think the Islanders are the only team interested in Marner, and I think a lot of that is Toronto media playing it up. Where John Tavares came to the Leafs from the Islanders. Islanders should be interested in Mitch Marner. I don't know how reliable it is that Marner could be going to the Islanders. Again, $8.65 million in cap space for the Islanders. They can make it work 100%. If they sign it for around $11 million, they'll be able to get a couple guys off the books, and we'll see what happens. Again, you can be 10% over the cap in the summer. So we'll see if the Islanders are able to offer sheet Mitch Marner. I don't think they are the only team, like I said. A team like potentially the Montreal Canadiens. I heard they were interested in Patrick Laine, but we'll leave the Canadiens for another episode. I think the New York Islanders would be a great destination for Mitch Marner if everything worked out. And again, 4 first-round picks would be a lot for the Islanders, but they're not a team that, like an Arizona Coyotes where they could be at the bottom, although I don't think the Coyotes will be this year. The Islanders will be competing for top place in the Metro with Mitch Marner, so those picks won't be worth as much as a team like the Coyotes picks would be if Marner did go to Arizona. So we'll see what happens with the New York Islanders and Mitch Marner. Other than that, where do I see the Toronto Maple Leafs finishing this season? Now, if they retain Mitch Marner, if they're able to keep him, I still think they'll be finishing 3rd in the Atlantic Division. And hear me out on this one. I think their roster has gotten a bit, I wouldn't say worse than last year, but again, they lost Connor Brown, a lot of their defensemen. They were able to put in Tyson Barrie and Alexander Kerfoot, sign Jason Spezza, and again, that bottom 6 is made up of a lot of guys that are going to be at the bottom ends of the amount, the least amount of money a player can make. They'll be around $700K like Jason Spezza was. Nick Patan's on the lower side of things. Trevor Moore, same thing. So a lot of their bottom 6 is made up of guys that, they'll have to be around $700K to $1 million. So I think their bottom end is much weaker than a team like Tampa, Boston, even Florida. Boston, Toronto, and Florida will be battling out for 2nd, 3rd, and the 1st wild card. But I do see the Toronto Maple Leafs falling in to the 3rd place in the Atlantic Division. Why I don't have them say falling behind the Panthers if the Panthers roster got better, the Leafs got worse. On paper, the Leafs roster got worse, but I think guys like Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, all these young guys, Andreas Johnsson, I think Nylander will have a better year, bounce back year. Kapanen, Hyman, if they are able to keep Hyman, I think they'll all take steps in their development, and I think Matthews will hit 50 goals, Marner will hit 100 points, Andreas Johnsson will be around the 50 to 60 point mark, Kapanen around the same, so I think you will see improvements from those players, but again, I think their defense got a bit worse despite picking up Tyson Barrie, and same with their bottom 6. So I have the Toronto Maple Leafs coming around 3rd in the Atlantic Division, but at the end of the day, it's the NHL. You never know what's going to happen. The Leafs could finish 1st in the Atlantic for all I know, and maybe have great seasons from a guy like Jeremy Bracco or Nick Shore. I don't know, but they could have some great seasons from some of those bottom 6 players, and I think that's what they're going to be relying on if they do want to challenge for 1st in the Atlantic Division. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to drop a like at the bottom of the screen. Comment what you guys think of the Toronto Maple Leafs and where they will be finishing this season. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.